In what way do translation associations promote our profession? Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelancerverse. Thanks for coming back to the channel once again. Today I have a special guest on the channel. John O'Shea is coming on. He's the chairperson of FIT Europe. FIT Europe is the International Federation of Translators, a very interesting organization, and FIT Europe is the European Regional Center of FIT Global, and John is the chairperson of this regional center, so he graciously agreed to come on the channel. I met him many times at Translating Europe Forum, once was even on stage with him. He's a very kind, very humble person, so I knew exactly that when I ask, he will come on the channel, so it's great. Thank you very much, John, again. It's really cool to get such a first-hand insight into an organization like that. And we do also learn a bit about personal motivations of John. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you like it and you would like to see more, and enjoy the interview. So welcome back to the channel, everyone. We have a special guest today, John O'Shea, chairperson of FIT Europe and also legal translator, decided to come on the channel. Thank you so much, John, for taking the time.
Thank you very much for having me today, Adrian.
Before we get into FIT Europe, I would like to know a bit more about you and also the viewers. I know you, of course, mostly from the TEF conference, but could you tell the viewers a bit about yourself, how you got into the language industry?
So I was originally a law lecturer many years ago, and I was teaching environmental law and European law and law on computers. And I was doing research on Greek law and Irish law because they were the two edges of the European Union. And at some point, one of my colleagues who was Greek said, I can't translate everything for you. You need to go and learn Greek. So I did. And then through the course of doing some of that research and then later on moving to Greece, it just happened naturally that I got into translating legal documents because that's my background and specialization. And then in 2017, I joined the board of FIT Europe. And then in 2021, I became the chairperson. I've been the chairperson since then.
Nice. How long did it take you to get Greek to a translation level?
To a translation level, I'd say a couple of years, but I was pretty fluent within about 6 months, I would say, to be able to understand everything and to interact with people. But of course, I was living in Greece at the time, so that really helped. I think
seems
Greek
extraordinarily fast. Are you usually, it's easier for you to learn languages than for others?
I think Greek was easier because I had studied German at school, I had studied French at school, and the grammar of Greek somehow is similar to the grammar of German because German grammar is said to be based around ancient Greek grammar. That's what people are saying anyhow. And so I could understand all the declensions of verbs and things like this and the different cases. It was all normal to me. But also the good thing with Greek is you already know thousands upon thousands of Greek words because they're integrated into English, they're integrated into French, they're integrated into Spanish. And so it's a matter of changing the pronunciation, changing the ending. So it wasn't that difficult.
Really? Okay. Very interesting. Okay. We mentioned now already twice FIT Europe. So could you tell us a bit what that is?
Well, FIT Europe is a regional centre inside FIT, and FIT is the International Federation of Translators. It was founded in 1953 in Paris. It currently has around 100 member associations. So the members of FIT are not individual translators like you or me. They are associations at national level, or it could be at sub-national level. So let's say within Italy, you could have a smaller association that covers a region of Italy, or in Germany, there are definitely smaller associations which are covering, let's say, the Hamburg region. Because there are so many different geographical regions around the world, FIT decided quite some decades ago that it should start setting up these things called regional centers. So all the associations in a geographical unit like Europe are subject to a regional center. So it has its own administration. So there's a board which is elected. It has annual meetings, and then every third year it has a general meeting. And the regional centers work to promote the general objectives of FIT inside that region, and anything which is specific to that particular region is dealt with by the regional center, and anything which is of global importance or has a global effect on the profession is dealt with at the international level by FIT International. So FIT is at the top, and it has its own council and its own governing bodies, and it has a statutory congress every 3 years, and it has annual meetings every year as well. Mm-hmm. But then in Europe, we have FIT Europe. In North America, there's FIT North America. In Latin America, we have FIT LATAM, which is what it's called. And we have FIT Africa, and we have FIT Asia. So it's a complicated structure, but this is what has been developed within the federation, and it seems to work because the idea of having the regional centres is based around the idea of subsidiarity that we also have in the European Union, that the action takes place closest to the people affected. So you're not doing everything at like a top level, you're doing things at the level where it's more likely to have an impact and an effect and to bring about change.
And what would you say are these actions, like the motivation objective of FIT Global and FIT Europe, if they are different or maybe they're the same?
They're not different because FIT Europe is still within FIT. It's not something distinct from FIT. It's just a subdivision of FIT. So FIT has its own bylaws and regulations to which we are subject, and those documents set out the basic objectives and the purposes of the International Federation. So, for example, it's a space for the associations to come together and share views and opinions and learn from each other. We provide facilitation in setting up associations in countries or areas where there are no associations currently. We gather and we share and disseminate information about conditions of work and pay, technological developments, any questions which are relevant or useful to the profession overall. We strive to promote the interests of translators, terminologists and interpreters, and also to promote the recognition of the profession and enhance the status of translators, interpreters, and terminologists within society. So they're very, very broad objectives. And then FIT Europe, it has its own set of regulations, and it basically mirrors those objectives. And then we decide which of those at European level are the most appropriate for us to engage with and to promote and to advance at any particular point in time, depending on what's happening in the market in Europe.
Mm-hmm. But then you realize these actions in collaboration with the members, with the member associations, or you have people that work for FIT that then realize these actions. You know what I mean?
Yes, I understand. Yes. So, well, the board of FIT Europe consists of people who are members of the boards of national associations. Okay, so, for example, we have the president of an English association, and we have the president of an Austrian association, and we have someone who was a former president of the Hungarian Association of Translators. And so we have people who are deeply involved in their own associations at national level, coming together at European level to try and solve issues at the European level, to develop actions at a European level that will assist the profession overall. And then we also, if we need, we also bring on board like volunteers. And again, they would come from the national associations. So, for example, we might have someone from I'm a member of a Greek translation association called PEM. So we might have someone from PEM assisting in some of the working groups that we have, or assisting with like certain activities. For example, currently we have someone from AIT, which is the English or the British Association of Translators and Interpreters. We have a volunteer from there helping us with our social media. So we have someone on the board who's in charge of social media, but we also have an external volunteer who's helping with that. And this has been the case ever since I've been on the board. We've always had people from outside the board assisting us and helping us, because as you can imagine, there's an awful lot that needs to be done, and everyone's a volunteer. And so the more volunteers we have, the more things that can be done.
Yeah, I see. Okay. And you mentioned that you aid also in setting up associations. So if someone, I don't know, which country doesn't have one, but let's say someone from Lithuania is watching and thinks, I want to set up something. How would that work? They would reach out to FIT and there would be an option to collaborate?
Yeah, so there is a formal procedure. So you have to apply through FIT at the global level, but FIT Europe as the regional centre can assist and has in the last couple of years assisted quite a few associations. So normally what happens is the association already exists at national level, but they're not a member of FIT. So we guide them through the process. We tell them, we will, for example, look at their statutes or their articles of associations and do an audit of some sort and say whether the statutes or the articles of association would need to be amended to bring it into line with what FIT expects, because there are certain documents which have been prepared by the federation which set out the ways in which a member association should ideally operate. And so if we see a deviation from that, then we can get them. And this has actually happened a couple of times in the last couple of years, where associations have gone through the process of changing their regulations, their statutes, whatever you want to call them, so that they're more in line with what FIT would expect. And then they join, or rather they submit an application, and their application is approved by council, because council is the main governing body in FIT. And if council approves, then you become a member, but you don't become a full member until the next Congress. And then when Congress takes place, then your membership is confirmed. And at that point, you become a full member and you can vote. Up until Congress, you are entitled to participate in all the meetings, to be involved in the regional centre, to engage in all the activities, to get all the information that the Federation produces, but you can't vote. So it's like a phased membership. We also have other categories of members as well, not just the national associations, but also academic organizations can become associate members.
Yeah, I see. And you would say what you just mentioned are the main benefits of an association joining FIT, the voting rights, the benefits of all the actions that FIT is taking, and I guess visibility and support from other associations.
Visibility and learning what problems exist in other parts of the world and how associations are dealing with them. Also, there's a huge amount of CPD which takes place. So FIT and FIT Europe both have CPD events which are for individual translators and interpreters, but they also have a lot of events which are, let's say, some sort of like academy for the members of boards. So they're teaching skills to people who are volunteers who are running associations at national level. So like how to deal with like crisis communication issues, how to deal with toxicity among volunteers, how to communicate around the issue of machine translation and generative AI and what that means for the profession, all these sorts of things. So there's like some sort of academy, we could say, which teaches skills to the people who are on the boards of national associations to empower them so that they can run their associations better. That's one of the tangible benefits, I would say.
Speaking of that exchange, is there also exchange happening between the regional centers? Can European associations learn from Asians, from Africans, etc.?
Yes, well, I would say that Africa and Asia are the most recent associations that were set up in the last couple of years, and there is indeed a lot of exchange of information. So I have attended a FIT North America conference and spoken there about the Ellis survey and the importance of gathering data at a regional centre level so that you can interact with policymakers and with other partners in the sector or in the profession or in the industry and explain, what needs to change, what the problems are. So everyone has access to lots of information and can actually discuss these issues properly. And I have spoken at events for FIT Africa, and other members of the board of FIT Europe have participated in FIT Africa events. We have very regular communications as well between all the presidents or the chairpersons of the regional centres. So we, for example, FIT North America was just thinking about changing its statutes or its regulations, and they asked us for input and advice on that. When Fit Africa was being set up, they were asking for input, like how should we go about setting up the regional centre? Is this draft of the statutes okay? Should we make any changes to it? What would be appropriate? So there's a lot of input and exchange of information between the regional centres. Yeah, because again, it's like each regional centre will have its own issues and its own problems to deal with, but maybe they can learn something from an existing regional centre that will help them.
Yeah, as you said, there are the standard bylaws and regulations that count for all the fit regional centers, but then you have very specific problems, of course, right?
Yes, and you can you can tailor the regional centers bylaws to the specific situation in your region. For example, the distances in Europe for travel are relatively small, so we can have more regular face-to-face meetings. But for example, in Africa, where the distances are massive, it's more difficult to have regular face-to-face meetings. So maybe the statutes would say that everything has to be online, or maybe ideally we would like to meet in person, but the regular practice will be to meet online. The same maybe for Fit Latam as well, for Latin America, where you can have massive geographical distances. So the meetings are all primarily taking place online.
Yeah.
And you can build that into
even
your regulations.
Distances is one thing, but even identity, I feel like there is, even in Europe, there is not really one European identity, right? But with these huge continents, people are so different, right? It must be very hard to align that and to incorporate everyone so that everyone has a voice and is able to reflect their problems or also successes, right? It's not always about problems. Yeah. That's great that there is a exchange, and I assume North America and Europe are the biggest and longest standing regional centers.
So Europe was the first that was set up and is the largest. We have around 66 member associations, if I remember correctly. So if FIT has 100, FIT Europe is the largest regional centre within the federation. FIT North America actually only has about 8 members, if I remember correctly, because they have ATA naturally. Is massive. And then you have smaller sub-national associations, and you have some from Mexico and Canada. So they only have 3 countries in FIT North America. So the number of associations that you could possibly have there is smaller. Now, I think the second largest is FIT Latam, FIT Latin America. Mm-hmm. And then Africa is growing because it was only set up 2 years ago, and I think Fit Asia was also set up 2 years ago, and again it's growing in size. But I think Fit Europe and Fit Latam are the largest.
Yeah. Okay, nice. A lot of exchange happening. I love that, and I also know that you have direct links and a lot of exchange to the European institutions, right? With the Lind Expert Group. What does that collaboration look like between? What are the mutual benefits of the institutions and Fit Europe?
Well, first of all, I should probably explain what the Lind Expert Group is. So it's an expert group inside the European Commission. So it was set up by the Directorate General for Translation, and it consists of representatives of freelancers, of translation agencies, of universities, of technology providers, of basically all players from all the different aspects of the language industry or the language sector. And we meet face-to-face a couple of times a year, and we also have online meetings. And we explain to the European Commission what the state of play is, what is happening, what the concerns are, what the positive developments are, what the negative developments are. So but we also have a program of work. So we're working on solving all the players all together, trying to solve some of the issues which are taking place. But we're not doing that on our own. In the last couple of years, we've been working very, very closely with the EMT network, the European Masters in Translation Network, which is a network of, I think, 80-something universities in Europe who are training future translators and interpreters. And so we're trying to collaborate together, like, is the education that students are currently receiving, is it sufficient for the market, and how can it be changed so that when they go out into the market that they have the right skills that the market needs? Do the people who are doing the teaching, the university professors, do they have the right skills to be able to teach? So how can we ensure that they get the right skills so that they can teach the students what the students need to know? Then we also have a strand of activity which is for visibility, because we've seen, like, in Ellis over the last couple of years, like, a decline in the number of registrations for a translation and interpreting studies. So we have a visibility campaign about making these studies more visible for younger people, that there is still a language industry, that there will still be a language industry, that generally speaking, a lot of people who study translation and interpreting never end up being translators and interpreters anyhow. They use the skill set that they acquire to do lots of other interesting jobs. They go into language related tasks rather than having a task with their language or their translation skills as the core of that task. And we also have a strand of work where we're updating the competence framework. So the European Masters in Translation has a competence framework, which is a basic document which sets out, like, the skills and the competences that you need when you're studying translation for the market. So it's tied into one of the things that I mentioned earlier. And because the developments are, like, fast-paced, we updated it a couple of years ago. We're currently in the process of updating it now. And then universities, on the basis of that document, will adapt their curricula to ensure that students are getting, like, the right sort of teaching and the right sort of training on the right topics that they need to be good professionals in the market, and that they have a good fit for the market.
So you're defining skills that will be needed, or are already needed but will be needed in the future, and then universities around Europe can adapt their curriculum.
Yes, that's the general idea. Yes.
Nice. Yeah, that was also one of my questions, like, how does Fit Europe react to the technological changes? That's one aspect, definitely. To almost, you're looking at it from the outcome perspective, right? Where do you want the people to get to? And then you can reverse engineer the curriculum around it. So how do we get there? And then you're also involved in that with European universities. You're also collaborating with them directly.
Yes, through the Lind group, we're collaborating with the universities. And also there have been some proposals made in the last year or so that Fit Europe would be a partner with European universities in certain projects that they're doing for certain types of training, and we're happy to assist in any way that we can in that. But coming back to what you were saying about the Federation's position around technology, so Fit Europe has not issued any position papers on this, because Fit International has done that. They have special working groups or standing committees that deal with these topics, and so a few years ago, when machine translation was the big thing, the Federation issued a position paper on machine translation. And then it's with AI, it was updated. And then when we started to see, that governments were starting to propose that AI be used for interpreting in the courts and in important settings like migration and asylum, the position paper was updated again, and a separate position paper specifically about those proposals from governments was issued. And at Congress, which took place last year in Geneva in September 2025, there was a declaration made by all the member associations at Congress about the important role that translators and interpreters play in ensuring justice and the rule of law, and their involvement in public proceedings and public procedures. So if anyone is interested in what the Federation has to say about these things, they can consult those documents. The basic position, if I had to summarize it, is that we're not opposed to the technology. Translators have always been adapting to technology. If you want to call it opposition, it's the the way in which the technology is used to reduce prices and to reduce pay and to speed up working conditions. So it's the concern for the interests of the translators and interpreters that is of concern. It's what the Federation is interested in speaking about and pushing back against. That yes, we have this technology, translators will naturally adapt to it, they will go away and do CPD, they will learn, they will integrate it into their business, but that should not come at the expense of the earnings of translators and interpreters. They serve a valuable role. Without them, if we were to rely just on the raw outputs, we would all be in very, very serious trouble. So we are definitely needed, but it's that economic issue where everything comes down to. And that's part of the reason why we also do the Ellis survey every year, because we want to see and have real data every year about what is happening. This technology is out there, yes, we acknowledge that, but how is that impacting our earnings? How is that impacting our standard of living, our quality of life?
Yeah, it really sounds like all you're doing out there is with the goal of highlighting the significance and relevance of language professionals, right? So that's
yes, exactly.
A big thank you from me and from everyone watching for that work. And where can people find these relevant documents and other documents from FIT? Is there a place on the website where this can be seen?
So FIT International has its own website. I think it's FIT-IFT.org. And FIT Europe has its own website, but it's currently being rebuilt, so it's offline at the moment. The only page which is online is because we have this thing called a CPD calendar. What we do is we ask the member associations when they're having their own CPD events, if they are open to people from other associations or people who speak the language of that event and they might be interested in registering for it or attending it, that they send us that information. We put it in a shared space online in the calendar, and then we also send out like a newsletter to the member associations that all these events are taking place. And if you want to let your members know about this and if you want them to attend, then they can attend. So the CPD calendar is still accessible and it's online. And then gradually from a bit later this month, probably towards the end of the month and throughout April, other pages on the FIT Europe website will be back out there in circulation.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I will put all of that in the description of the video. You guys can check it out. We're coming to the end to round up the interview. Now we heard from the chairperson, John. I would like to hear also from your personal motivation. Why do you do so much additional work? What is the personal motivation for you to do all that and to chair FIT Europe?
I think it must be in the DNA.
Yes.
My father and my uncle, they moved from one side of Ireland to the other. And when they came to the village where I was born, they became like deeply involved in doing voluntary work, especially through certain charities which were helping the poor, the less well off. And they were also involved like very deeply in local sports organizations. My father is now the honorary president of the local Gaelic Football Association after having played for many, many years and then being involved deeply in the team. One of my brothers is deeply involved in that same football organization. He is was up until last year the president of the local village festival organization. My sister is on the festival committee. So I think there's like a deep thing in our family DNA to contribute, to help others, to try and make a difference when you see that there's something that needs to be done. It's possibly also because I grew up in Northern Ireland, and we have this very strong feeling in Northern Ireland about like fighting back against injustice and speaking out when there's a problem. And I think it's generally an Irish thing to do this anyhow. It's a part of the Irish DNA. So I have personal family DNA about volunteerism and possibly Irish DNA about injustice. But also I think because of my background in European law and teaching European law and understanding the importance of the European Union and people coming together and speaking together and sharing their different perspectives and opinions, and then trying to find like a common path forward. I think that's also part of why I do what I do. If that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely it does in detail. Thank you so much for that glimpse into your family traits. I mean, that's a beautiful thing to have in your DNA, that sort of engagement, right? Thank you very much for coming on the channel today. To you out there, I hope this was useful. If you'd like to hear more about FIT, I'm sure I can also get in touch with the other regional centers, right? So we can make this a series. This was very interesting. As I said, I'm going to put all the links in the description. And also, if you want to reach out to John directly, which is probably through LinkedIn, the easiest way, right?
Yes. I think on LinkedIn, I'm John Anthony O'Shea.
And thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this. And I see you next week with the next one. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Adrian.